Alright, so here we go. This is episode 9 of the Creating Your Campaign series. And this is actually like kind of the last really in-depth one. Because the final one is going to be about tying everything together and creating that campaign and how about. And I think I'm going to use that one also as a way to kind of explain to people how I run a game and what works for me and how just a good overview. But enough. I'll talk about that when I do number 10 here. Number 9, the hook. Okay, so the hook is a very vague term, and I'll fully admit that. The hook is what is going to make people excited to play your game, to play your campaign. It is very vague because of the fact that the reason people are going to want to play your campaign could be whatever. It could be anything. But it's got to be something that your players are going to want. So this is where knowing your players and knowing what they're looking for with your campaign, and in accordance to like what the story you want to tell them as well, really come into like either conflict or mesh together. So one of the things I remember I've read many times over is that take a moment to talk to your players about the campaign and talk to them about what they're looking for. Now, I think that that's important, and I think that's something you should do. But I also think that sometimes players don't really know what they want, and I'm saying that as a player myself. They like when I went into this most recent campaign that I've been playing, where I've been playing this bard. I had this idea of what I wanted my bard to be. What Connor Dillon, my bard is now, is nothing compared to what I thought he was going to be. I was going to be this kind of flippant, happy-go-lucky, cheerful, super nice, super over the top, let's do this, guys, kind of guy. And now he's the only character who's survived every single session. He is hardened by the world. He's seen I'm talking about Connor Dillon in like he's a real person. But you know what? And campaign characters are real people. I mean, to you, right? I mean, if you feel a connection to your character, I mean, then there's something going on that's right with that campaign. But I mean, Connor Dillon has seen his friends murdered. He has seen his uncle, his father figure in his life, tortured and almost die several times over. He has sworn revenge against, this happy-go-lucky minstrel has sworn murderous revenge against several people that tried to do him in, and in most cases has seen that revenge come to fruition, either at somebody else's hands or his own. So he is a bloodied individual now, and he's a hardened adventurer. But that wasn't what I wanted. That wasn't what I wanted that character to be. But for whatever reason, that's where we've ended up. And the story of Connor Dillon is so much better because of it. So yes, take some time to talk to your players about what they expect, but go into it with kind of more vague, more overarching situations. Do they want intrigue? Do they want royal courtroom powers, like warring with each other, and the players are just these pawns, trying to siphon that power and wealth from them? Do they want just a straight up dungeon crawl, go in there, smash things up, and take their stuff, and get back to town and with their hides intact, and so they can cash in their treasure for whatever it is that they're looking for. I mean, so knowing what style of game they're looking for is important, but you still don't have a hook. Now, I mean, your hook could just be, this is going to be straight up, this is dungeon crawl, baby. We're going to do, like when I ran Rapanathek, which is a fantastic mega dungeon, I just said, this is a dungeon that's going to try to kill you over and over again, and we're going to see how far you get. And that was the hook, and my players were down for it. They were like, yes, let's do this. This is going to be amazing. There was a storyline. There were NPCs that were important. There was stuff going on, but the most important person in that campaign was the dungeon. That was the most important thing that they were dealing with, and that was the thing they cared about the most. So there is that's a hook right there. That's a hook. Your hook could be, you could be saying, I'm gonna dig out my old Dragon magazines. We're gonna play Spelljammer. We're gonna be heroes in space. And that's a hook. You could say this is going to be a post-apocalyptic grimdark world where there's no magic anymore. It's been destroyed. That's a hook. The big thing is that the hook has to be something, as I said, that is going to get players to come back to the table. They're going to be like, when are we playing next? I mean, that's where the campaign that I'm playing in right now, that my friend Jason's running, is that he has us asking, when are we playing next? When we get done with our session, we're like, when are we playing next? I mean, if it was something we were, I glorify Jason a bit, but I mean, Jason had a campaign, this is several years ago, but he had a campaign where I had a character, and I just grew bored. I was just like, we're traveling across different planes, and seeking, I don't even remember what we were doing offhandly anymore, but I remember we were like kind of seeking these like weird bars of power or something, and we were going like, we're going to go to the plane of fire, and we have to get this essence for this thing, and I remember by about session 5 or 6, I just stopped showing up for the game. And that's horrible. That's horrible that I stopped showing up. But I just wasn't having any fun. The hook wasn't there. It was like, I got better things to do on my Sunday afternoons than do this. And so that's where the challenge is that like you need to give, and especially if you're playing, and this is not necessarily, going to be the case, but this is for my group, my group is a bunch of 40-year-old men playing make-believe on Saturday nights, generally Saturday nights, for about 6 to 7 hours. And when you boil it down to that's kind of weird, right? That's not normal. But I have a wife, I have 2 children. I have a job. I have my YouTube channel. I have a lot of things that I like to do. I paint models for Warhammer. My daughter right now is really getting into canvas painting, and I used to do that a lot. So she and I are exploring that hobby again. I'm going back to it. She's coming into it. I enjoy painting with her. It's just like I have lots of things. My son, he's getting into sports, so I'm teaching him how to play basketball because I used to play basketball when I was younger. So it's like there's a lot of stuff that goes on in my life, and and that's one of the things about our lives is that we have a finite amount of time, and especially as we get older, we not only because of mortality, because of mortality, but also just because of the fact that we have a lot of things, a lot of people, a lot of hobbies, a lot of whatever, a lot of commitments that need your time. And for me to just say once every 2 weeks, I need 6 to 8 hours, away from everything else. And I go and sit at a table and I pretend I'm a hardened, angry bard with revenge and murder on his mind. That's weird. Inherently that's weird that I want to go do that over anything else. I don't think about the fact that I've got an inbox piling up with things that I have to take care of. Or I don't think about the fact that I could be getting a video review done when I'm at that table. I am in. I am bought in. So the game master / dungeon master / referee has to get a hook. And the hook isn't going to always be the same for each person that's at the table. Some people are going to get hooked in easier than others. But you need to figure out what the players at your table are going to buy in with. And sometimes it's just hanging out with your friends. Sometimes it's just I'm gonna create an atmosphere at my table where we got pizza, we got soda, we got people that have been friends for years sitting down and just enjoying each other's company. Maybe that's all you need. But if you want to actually play your campaign, you need to actually make that fun as well. Otherwise, you're just going to get together and do that without the game itself. So, come up with something. Come up with something interesting. And if you need, once again, if you need to steal something, like I said, great Dungeon Master steal. Go to your local bookstore and grab a random fantasy pulp novel off the shelf. Go to a used bookstore. Find some 15-year-old fantasy book that nobody's read and just start reading it. And find something in that book that you find interesting, find entertaining, find amazing. Google like strange fantasy images and just have images of Cthulhu or demons or like dragons on giant mountaintops, and have those things create ideas in your head that are going to be interesting and evocative for your players to experience. I'm not here to tell you because there's tons of books out there, but there's a really, really good book that you can get the PDF for. I don't think it's tough to find an actual hard copy of it, but there's a book called The Tome of Adventure Design that Necromancer Games published, or Frog God Games published several years ago. And that book is just basically full of adventure hooks. It's just full of ideas. And all you have to do is just turn to a page and read something. And if you're I don't consider myself to be the greatest storyteller ever, but I mean the fact that I can just read a couple of different paragraphs in that book and I can already formulate a plot line for my next campaign. Real rough, but I have a plot line. It speaks volumes to how amazing that book is. But remember, biggest thing is that you need to talk to your players and find out what kind of game they want. And two, you got to make sure that you can get them to buy into it, and make sure that you as the game master can buy into it as well. I have personally ran campaigns where I bit off more than I could chew, or I myself wasn't all that jazzed with how the campaign was going. And the players can sense that. They can sense the malaise of the dungeon master in the situation they have, and they react to how you react. And if you can't buy into it, then the players can't buy into it either. So this one's a little bit vague, but I'm kind of trusting you as the dungeon master. That when it comes time for you to create your campaign, that you're going to have that one little spark, that one little interesting nugget that's going to be interesting. Like the campaign that's in my head right now, that I don't know when I'm going to get to run it, or if I ever will, but I've got this idea. I got this idea of, a grimdark campaign, which everybody wants to run a grimdark campaign lately. Just this whole the world is beset on all sides by horribleness. But I mean, but I've got this idea, this grimdark campaign of what if the rest of the world is gone, except for basically this circle that's around this I can't archipelago or whatever, of this chain of islands, and if you leave this circle, maybe the idea is that there was the 5 major powerful mages, and they're keeping the destruction of the world outside of this circle at bay. But like take everything else and jam it into this like this small little circle of the hemisphere, and like you know time is short, your days are numbered, but a valiant group of adventurers like are trying do what they can to like I haven't really decided like what's out there. Like kind of like the Stephen King story The Mist or whatever, like you go outside of the circle, like strange and horrible things are out there, they'll just rip you apart. But if you stay within that circle, you're okay. But for some reason, players eventually are going to have to go and leave that safety because, well, reasons, and that's the idea that I have in my head. That's my hook. That's my thing. That's like the characters are going to be like, what's outside there? What has Lance thought of? What has he created that's in that outside that world? And that's kind of my idea that I've been working on now and writing. But you gotta, and feel free to steal that if you like. But I mean, you gotta come up with something like that. You gotta come up with something that gets people to want to come back to the table. And I'm sure that if you take enough time, read enough books, watch enough movies, think about these things long enough, you'll come up with one yourself as well. So, there you go. I can't believe I've done 9 of these already. I hope you've enjoyed them. The 10th one, like I said, is more going to be like putting it all together, but also just kind of telling you how I run my campaigns, and just more of like the way I DM, the way I tell my stories, the way that I try to engage the players and the process. And it's both going to be the mechanics of it, as far as even the rolling the dice, and all the way to scheduling and making sure that I get everybody interested and keep them engaged even when they're not at the table. But regardless, thank you very much for watching all of these. Stay awesome, be the amazing human being that you are, and I will see you next time.